The next step in finishing this up is to use the Dremel tool and smooth out all the surfaces. As you can see in that last video, the rough grinding, I called it rough grinding because that's exactly what it is. It's pretty rough. So it only takes 10 or 15 minutes with a Dremel tool with one of these drum sanders to finish the shaping and clean it up and smooth everything out. I just have one little part left to do on here. It's mostly all smoothed out. You see it looks pretty good and it just melts in the hand. Okay, it needs a little bit more round up in here. And then here I have, this is nice and rounded. And on this side, it just has a little tiny bit of a point right there. That needs to be smoothed out, just rounded over a little bit. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm trying to get it in the camera. It was too hard to do all of this and have it in the camera. I did this outside and with a respirator on. But I can do just a little tiny bit in here. That's already rounded that over. Now, let's do a little bit of work that needs to be done here. That looks pretty good. That's all I needed to do. Now I have one more thing to do. On the underneath side, I think you can see it in this angle. You can see a little bit of waviness here in the steel. Well, I couldn't get on the inside edge with my big belt grinder. And when you use the small drum on the Dremel tool, it follows in those contours and is not able to smooth it out. So what I'm going to do, remove the camera. We're going to use this top wheel on this small belt sander, because with that I should be able to get in here inside of those curves and smooth it out. So for this I'm going to put my respirator on and probably some hearing protection. So the top wheel on that belt sander wasn't very smooth. It was probably a little bit out of round because you could see the knife was bouncing up and down. There was some chatter on that. But I think I got it good enough, and I'm going to make a finish pass over it with the Dremel tool. If I have to, I can take my big belt grinder apart and put different wheels on it. I really don't feel like doing that. I don't want to take the time, and if I reconfigure it like that, then I just have to put it back. So I'd rather not do that. So I'm going to do some on the Dremel tool now that I hopefully got the major dips out with that little belt sander. Okay, I don't know if you can see that in there, but that looks a lot better. Most of those little divots are gone, and I'm going to call that good. Next, we're going to apply a finish to the micarta. I leave it sanded rough so that it has texture and it has grip. And what I'm going to use is teak oil. This makes a really good finish for micarta. It's really going to bring out the black in it. It's going to add a lot of durability to the handle. And by that I mean micarta absorbs things. So if you were cleaning out a deer or other game, that handle is going to absorb, blood and different fluids and whatever. So this gives you a nice finish that's in the handle, and it'll help prevent it from absorbing things that you don't want it to absorb. Again, I don't want a fine finish on it. I want it to stay rough for grip. And if it ever loses grip, you can always sand it back down and you can reapply some teak oil. And you could even reapply this, yearly or however often you feel that you have to, whenever it starts getting dry. I'm going to put a bunch on here and let it soak in. But then I'm also going to take another rag with some alcohol and clean off the steel, because I don't want this stuff drying on the steel. It turns into a mess that can be hard to clean off. Let's try and clean the blade off. Okay, we're going to let this dry and then give it another coat. Okay, we're going to do just a little bit of hand sanding. Just smooth it out a little bit. Then we'll do another coat of teak oil afterwards. It just was looking a little bit rough. You can get it pretty good with the Dremel tool, but you're going to have, minor imperfections. Even though I didn't sharpen this, the edge is still a little jagged. So let's just put a little tape on here. Be safe, especially since I'm behind the camera. And everything you do behind the camera, you're more likely to cut yourself. A little bit of painter's tape helps a lot. That keeps you off that sharp edge. Let's try a fresh piece of 180. getting in there without scratching the blade. Take my time. It's pretty good. It's probably 98% perfect. If I would go take my belt sander apart and put the smaller wheel on the top, I could get it 100%. But I think that's good enough. I do want to get this thing sent in. There we go. It's looking much better this time. A lot of times you can't see what needs to be sanded until you put the first coat of oil on there. Then any imperfection stands out. Okay, we got a rag with rubbing alcohol. Make sure we don't have any on the blade, because when that dries you can't get it off, or it's very hard.